navigating through the murky waters of temptation is not always easy. Our text this morning reminds us and reveals to us there is good news, and the good news is temptation is not the same as sin. There is bad news, and the bad news is that temptation is all around us, and any of us are successful at either overcoming it or falling to it. And then there is good news. The good news is that as we journey through this time of temptation, these 40 days, God is with us. And we can relish in the fact that Jesus understands when we're in the throes of temptation. There are two thoughts that I have this morning about temptation. Two stories. They're not on the same wavelength, but they're two stories about temptation. A father was called into the principal's office at his son's school. Apparently, the son had shoved a chalkboard eraser into the mouth of one of his classmates. The father was furious with the son and demanded an answer from the son. And so he says to his son, "What reason could you possibly have put a chalkboard eraser in that girl's mouth?" The son meekly answered the question by saying, "Because her mouth was open." Sometimes it's hard to resist temptation. And then the other story, some of you may remember the days of Hee Haw when it aired on television. Well, it seems that in one of the episodes of Hee Haw, Dr. Campbell was confronted by one of his patients who said to the good doctor, "You broke my arm in 2 places." And the doctor replied, "Well, then stay out of those places." He has a point. We cannot regularly put ourselves in the face of temptation and not be affected. As we come to the stories, both in Genesis and in the New Testament, we are faced with the dilemma of temptation. Adam's temptation and Jesus' temptation. As we go through this 40 days of Lent, journeying in the footsteps of Jesus, we too may face some moments of temptation. One of those times that I face of temptation is when I'm trying to get just a little bit closer to God. I've determined in my mind I'm going to spend a little more time with God. I'm going to read my Bible a little more, pray a little more, and just meditate a little more. And you know what? Temptation. You don't have to say to yourself, "I'm going to put myself in temptation's path," because temptation is going to follow you wherever you are, and it's going to find you. And I find myself sometimes in those moments when I'm trying to be more intentional about developing my faith. Those are the moments. Those are the moments in which I find myself tempted by my agenda, by my time schedule, by all the things I have to do, and sometimes those temptations pull me away from the very thing I wanted to do. As we look at the story of Jesus in this temptation story, temptation did not have to be a part of the story. And yet there it is. It just pops up. It says that Jesus was baptized, and at that very moment of baptism, the cloud opened, the dove came down, the dove landed on Jesus, and then the voice began to say, "This is my Son, who I am pleased with." Temptations come to be in the midst of our relationships with God. Your relationship, my relationship, all of our relationships with God. They come to try to separate us from loving God with our whole hearts, our whole minds, and our whole soul. Temptations, though, are not moments of our weaknesses. They are there for the purpose of reminding us of our strengths and our sources of strength. As Jesus faced the very temptations in the desert, each one of them, each temptation was faced with a source of strength. It was faced with not only a source of strength, but the purpose was to show Jesus how to not only get through the deserts, but to depend and to lean upon God for his strength and for his wisdom and for his guidance. Jesus, while in the desert, it tells us, was led by the Holy Spirit out into the desert. Eugene Peterson puts it like this. Eugene Peterson says that those tests or those temptations of Jesus is those very moments where the devil was there to administer the test. Remember the stories of Job and how Job was in the opening lines. The accuser said to God, "Job does not serve you without a hidden agenda or a hidden motive." Those tests, those trials that you and I go through are moments of testing our relationship to God. Will we be loyal to God? Will we be obedient to God? Will we continue on the journey of God?